Okay, welcome, Michael. Thank you for agreeing to participate in our series of insights into business. I suppose we're particularly focused on the overall impact of COVID-19 and how people have pivoted businesses. But maybe just a quick introduction. Michael's a long-standing client of Crowe, involved in the family business of McCambridge Fine Foods, particularly known for its Irish soda bread, where it's a dominant player in Ireland. So, Michael, maybe you just give your own sort of flavour of the background of the business and the history.
Well, thanks, Jerry. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Look forward to having a brief chat with you on all things McCambridge and COVID. So our business started in 1945 back in Renland, Dublin 6, and sort of evolved into a food production business over the years. There was a big change in the mid 80s during the recession when actually retail was very, very challenging. And my late father moved into manufacturing a wide range of products, and we just then focused more and more on the winners in our product range and let the other products that weren't so successful die away, or in some cases actually culled them. So we're now operating out in a modern plant in Rathcoole, Dublin 24. We have two facilities there, one standard bakery, and we have a dedicated gluten-free site, a different place in Rathcoole, so we can make sure that we have separation of the two facilities. We operate in Ireland, and we sell product into the UK and into the US, so we're trying to build an export dimension to our business. We employ about 50 people.
Very good. And I suppose the family involvement then, I mean, you're obviously the main person involved from the family background, so you're in that role for best part of, it must be 20 years now, I suppose, is it?
Yeah, I suppose that every business evolves in a different way. I came into the business in 1994. My parents were involved in a road traffic accident, so I had to jump in. I have three other siblings who were doing other things, so I suppose I moved away from what I was doing to manage the business through that process, and then I've stayed with it. And my siblings are involved in their own careers, so they're really non-exec shareholders.
So just moving on to, I suppose, you know, given that you've grown the brand and maintained its market share and worked very successfully with the various multiples over the years, to get to a situation then where January 2020 in your landscape then, and then COVID-19 hit. So maybe just take us through the last 5-6 months or even more and how it's impacted on the business.
Yeah, I think everything that happened to us has happened to everybody else in the commercial space. So going straight to the March period, the real issues for the business were initially of a very fortunate increase in demand for bread products, which was driven by, I suppose, a bit of panic buying from I think it was the 15th of March, and that lasted for about 2 to 3 weeks. But as with anything that customers buy in such volumes which don't reflect the real need for the volume, there would have been a quieting down of that volume into May, June. However, on the other side of the coin, there was a significant interest and increase in home baking, and we had developed products in that space from about 2016, which were selling moderately in the UK, US, and in Ireland. But the volume of those products significantly increased over the period from April through to August this year. So where we did lose some volume and value in the food service space, so we would have sold a lot of fresh bread to guest houses, hotels around the country, and in fact, office facilities. With those three sectors empty of people, there would have been a decline in volume over the period May to September. But we're very, very fortunate that was compensated for by an increase in our bakery mixes, and principally to the export market.
I think in that sense, it's given that you pride the core product on its freshness and its lack of preservatives, let's say, and its wholesomeness. The bake at home did give you that long shelf life in the product, which I think is now you see the direct benefit of that, and something you've always expected you would have has actually come into play very strongly then.
I think there's an element of fortune, but you can only get profit from fortune if you're prepared. So there were businesses who were reacting to the COVID pandemic. We had developed this product, and you've hit the nail on the head. We did have that product so that we had something in our product portfolio which had shelf life, so that customers could buy it but not have to use it as quickly as a fresh loaf. And obviously you cannot sell a fresh loaf in London or New York, which is baked in Dublin. So it's very good for our business to have a product in our range which we can produce to stock, which will have 12 months shelf life, and be able then to supply demand when it hits. So yeah, we were able to sell nice fresh bread in Ireland, and as home baking interest peaked, we were to sell the mixes into households in Ireland through our McCambridge website, and into the UK in particular through a couple of online retailers.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that a bit later on the online retail, because I think your experience there is very, very interesting. I think maybe have some tips for other people who are maybe looking at that space. But if you take the other side of the business in terms of the people and your suppliers, I mean, how did that the overall COVID-19 impact those inputs, if you like, into your business?
I think a lot of businesses behaved or reacted in the same way the consumers did in the stores. So a lot of businesses went very aggressive in stock and ordered a lot of product in terms of packaging or even ingredient material, because no one knew when the peak was going to start dipping into trough. So we certainly over-ordered on packaging. We sold a lot of our packaging stocks, and that's more about security. Don't forget as well, during this COVID period, we still had Brexit in the background. So we had to doubly insure against Brexit issues, which we'd done already, and we found out built on that. So we probably, holding too much packaging at the moment and working our way down that. In terms of fresh ingredients, for us that worked fine. We do buy flour, but we had contracts for flour, so really the miller had to supply us, and there were shortage in the retail space. Going back to packaging, in fact, a lot of the shortage in the retail space was due to the fact that a lot of the flour suppliers to retail didn't have packaging. They ran out of it. It was sourced from China, and they couldn't get it in until late May. So there was flour in the market, but there wasn't enough packaging to put it in. Everything else was okay, Jerry. I think everybody was on a keen watch to make sure we weren't stocking out of materials. We had probably had a 15-hour period where we were waiting for flour, and that's because we were producing so much bread at that time that the order system had gone out from where we needed it.
And the employees, how have you managed the employees? I think you're saying that quite a few of them are non-Irish nationals.
Yeah, and that would be normal in our industry. So we have a very effective protocol in place. The sort of things that we've done is where employees have to go back home for essential reasons. We have a very clear process for how and where they isolate when they come back. In addition, we installed up-to-date clocking systems. So typically people would have used in the past clocking cards that moved on to handprint records. But we've just put in back in July a facial recognition and temperature recognition clock-in method. So the guys go in, show their face, and while they're doing that, the temperature is taken. And that's all with non-touch, obviously. So that keeps us up to speed on people's temperature and also removes the lack of contact on the clocking machine. And then we've brought in some very, very high quality PPE from Germany, which meets our needs in addition to face masks. And not forgetting that the business always had a high standard for personal hygiene, because we're in the food business, so we're always sanitizing. And we always had a level of PPE in place anyway. In terms of the office, anybody who can work from home is working from home. And then our drivers have all got dedicated PPE because they're out and about meeting stores and so on. So by and large, we've managed well so far.
So your good habits that you built up in the hygiene side, I think it seems like you've only had that 15-hour disruption because of an overproduction issue then. So you must be very happy with that outcome and relieved, I guess.
Yeah, it was great. I'm supposed to, with bakery, I suppose a bit like dairy, you are just producing for the next day, and your mindset is like that. So you never have stock at the end of the day, and you cannot hold the amount of stock that you need for 4 or 5 weeks of production. Because the fresh buttermilk wouldn't last anyway, and the amount of flour silos you'd need to hold 4 or 5 weeks of stock would be just non-commercial. Yeah. So yeah, our mindset is probably only 5 to 7 days ahead in terms of raw material. On packaging, it's a bit longer.
But I mean, if you went down for any period of time, then I mean, you're impacting your customers, and indeed the supply chain would be, you're vulnerable then to potentially someone stepping in there, albeit that you've got a good strong position in the marketplace.
I think that's a good point. And what happens in the whole sector is that if you have an issue, you actually pick the phone up to your customer and share with them the issue, because they're in everyday business as well, whether they're retailers or manufacturers, so they understand issues that one can have which are unforeseen. So a call goes in and explains what your issue or problem is, what your availability is reduced by, and they go, yeah, thanks very much, understand that, and then they go on the phone and talk to other bakeries and say, can you increase your production because we've a man down. And that works well. There's a collegiality to it to a certain extent.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's interesting that you work together on these issues, which I think is is a testament, I suppose, to the relationships you built up over the years.
Well, also, if you're down for a reason, you obviously calculate your own cost of being down, but actually the buyers in the retailers have very tight targets, and if they're out of a fast-moving line for 8 hours in a day, that's a bit of revenue gone from their P&L, which you're responsible for. So you have to take a longer-term view, and by making that phone call, you're not damaging your business.
Yep, indeed. Yep. And did you have to avail of any of the government supports, or would you see yourself doing so in the future?
No, no, we didn't. I suppose we were in a strong position. We wouldn't have met any of the thresholds required. I mean, when we went into work every day, counting my blessings, I was in the business I was in, and we had a good control system. So while I scanned my eye over it, I didn't see us qualifying for any of the supports. I suppose in the nature of the word supports, we were lucky we didn't need support.
Okay, yeah, very good. I suppose looking now, I mean, we've all had to ride a certain turbulence over the last while, but in terms of your strategy going forward, is there things you're changing now? I mean, I suppose if you take a view that there's, I don't know, 6 months to 12 months we still got left in this, is there things that you built into your business now that you need to change, or you have changed and you need to maybe develop further? Or
well, there's one thing in particular which I didn't mention, which there was a significant cost that we've been driving towards a sustainable packaging solution for our business, and the green agenda, and that was a big part of this 2020 year. So we have taken a very material hit because we had packaging in place ready to go, and the nature of sustainable packaging, which a lot of people don't appreciate, particularly the one we were doing, is that it has a shelf life. It's compostable, so it deteriorates over time.
Oh, yeah.
So so we had stuff ready to go, but because quite rightly the attention shifted away from sustainability really to survivability, that it just fell off the agenda. So in coming back to our strategy, yes, we've kind of recalibrated the timelines and understood to a greater extent as to where people have sustainability in their list of important items. So our strategy is now to spend more time understanding where consumers are at with regard to sustainability and what they want, and look to introduce sustainable packaging in about 12 months' time, because the current COVID and Brexit is too much for people to digest, and then try to ask them to understand the sustainable agenda. There is an undercurrent there. There's an element of what I call greenwashing. People are talking about sustainability but aren't actually doing it. and we need to match people's expectations rather than go in early, which we were about to do. The other thing really is not any rocket science. We've kind of really decided to focus and, to use the term, stick to the knitting. There's far too many variables out there at the moment for us to look to extend beyond what we're doing. And we think there's plenty of opportunity in what we're currently doing in terms of the explore and exploit avenues. So really our strategy now is to exploit ruthlessly any opportunity for savings within the business and explore opportunities outside the business, but within our core line, which we may talk about in a while. And so I'm trying to just keep it very simple so that I can keep my head organized and just go drive down those two routes, exploit and explore.
Excellent. Yeah. I think just so you remind me when you mentioned the packaging there, I think you were tying that in with a 75th anniversary of the business. Congratulations, I suppose, but it would have been nice to actually be able to use it and celebrate it in the fashion you used to.
Yeah. So I suppose that was the plan. Yeah, we thought we'd have a sustainable launch and 75 years in business going back to 1945, when in fact all packaging was sustainable back in those days. But no, we think that those two issues are really not top of the agenda for consumers now. They want value for money and good quality, as they've always got. And I suppose one could be economical with the truth and say that maybe we started the business in 1946 or 47 and have our birthday in a year or 2 years' time.
Yeah, very good. So just going back to that you mentioned earlier on sort of exporting the bake at home to perhaps the diaspora around the world, but maybe there's a deeper interest in the wholesomeness of the product and the healthiness of the product as well. Maybe you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I suppose one of the things that was always driving me in particular over the years was the comments that I would get back from consumers or people I'd have a casual conversation with. Wow, that product would be great in London. You could imagine having it in London or in wherever else in the world. And that was nearly a mission statement because whilst I didn't want to bore people, the only way to sell fresh bread in London is to bake it in London or New York or whatever it is. You'll never get the product in the quality you want to those markets in a financially viable way to sell it as fresh bread. It's not going to happen. Sure. So you can do loads. You can freeze bread, you can part bake and freeze and so on, or you can sell people a mix. But I wanted to sell people not a mix, but a solution. Because it's very easy to put a mix in a bag. People may buy it, and they put it in the cupboard and it's there a year later. So we've produced nearly a meal or a bake solution. So in our pack we have the baking tray and we have a mixing bag and the exact amount of ingredients required for one loaf of McCambridge brown bread, so that we've removed the barriers to people to buy it. The risk of purchase is low. The risk of execution is low in the product, and anybody with an oven and a fridge can make it and recreate lovely Irish bread. So we call that Bread Tin Bakery, and our aim was to sell it, export it into the mainstream UK retail market. However, at the time, the mainstream UK market started to reduce the number of facings they have in terms of a sector or category they called Foods from the World. And they really tightened down on that and just went mainstream UK. So you used to be able to go into UK supermarket and see foods from all over the world in a dedicated section. That size reduced. So we didn't really get any traction with the UK bricks and mortar retailer. But interestingly, and it wasn't our intention, so we weren't being clever, we picked up some very good business from a UK online retailer called Ocado, who were linked at the time with Waitrose and have a dedicated membership or consumer base who buy their groceries online from Ocado. We also sold the product from our McCambridge website in Dublin, which meant that people around the country could buy it, and we delivered it by courier to their home within 24 hours. So that was a useful exercise. So we had an online channel in 2 markets. I think because of our visibility on Ocado and probably at airports in Ireland, we got an invitation from Amazon to take part in what they call a vendor program. And really that is you look to sell to Amazon. They buy off you in the same way that our retail customers in Ireland buy off us. They give us an order, we send X, Y, and Z in, and they pay for us on their terms, agreed. So we looked at that and we didn't really feel it was right for us, because there's another method of selling in Amazon, which is called Seller Central, whereby actually it's a bit like renting a warehouse space and you sell out of that warehouse. Amazon is the warehouse, but you go in and you sell on, you pay the warehouse a fee for that. And that's called fulfilled by Amazon. So if you look at your Amazon purchase page, you'll see on the bottom right, either fulfilled by Amazon or sold by Amazon. The fulfilled by Amazon gives you more flexibility on pricing. You're dealing directly with the customer, and you have more opportunity to invest in marketing in your product, because it's still your product, whereas in the vendor central, it's their product. That didn't quite work out. I wouldn't have enough time this morning to talk through why that didn't work out, but we ended up being invited again by Amazon in December last to join vendor. So that was interesting. They were very keen, obviously, and they asked us back in again. Timing couldn't have been better. So we got the account set up between December and the middle of January, started selling in, and then COVID hit. And the home baking phenomenon hit the roof. So we went from not trading with Amazon to being number 5 in their top 100 bread mixes on sale in the UK. And we couldn't keep up with the volume. We did, but we had to bring extra staff in to produce. But it was a really, really useful exercise in understanding and learning how Amazon works, because we had to get fit very, very quickly and turn around very, very quickly. And it's a very complex model, as you can understand, because they have so many hundred millions of products run through their system. You could say, I'm not going to do this, I'll tear my hair out, but we're fortunate that we had an intern from UCD working with us, so we're able to let her work from home and dedicate her full time on Amazon account. So that worked exceptionally well, and we're still trading with them. We've initiated a marketing campaign just last Sunday using YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, directing anybody who's searching the term soda bread online in the UK to the Amazon page. And at the moment, we're now number 1 in bread mixes in Amazon UK out of 100.
You got from number 5, which was a phenomenal achievement. You got to number 1.
Yeah, but that's
all in 8-9 months. I mean, that's
well, and also it's reflective of how you can pull the lever. So that number 1 will probably last the next 2-3 weeks, because we're going to stop that activity in 3 weeks' time. So all that's happening is that anybody who's searching under some search terms are being directed straight to our Amazon page. We're paying for that, but it is a really, really good way to show cause and effect between the spend and the return you're getting.
And the direct feedback, sorry, I beg your pardon. But just the direct feedback then from customers, I mean, do you get you've always got fantastic feedback on your own website in terms of particularly people who are new to it, maybe tourists or something who eat it in Ireland. But are you getting something similar across the online platform? Yeah,
if you click on Amazon.co.uk, you'll see, you go to the product. I think there's something like 600 or 700 reviews there now. I think we're at 4.5 out of 5. And some are negative, absolutely, and they can be very helpful. Some are negative but uninformed, so people mightn't be used to soda bread, so use that as an educator. So it really is a storefront. Amazon is a storefront where you get quite direct feedback, which is posted there, so that if you want to buy the product, you should read 10 or 12 reviews, and that'll give you a flavor for whether it's going to suit you or not.
Yeah. And I think, is it gluten-free selling strongly as well? Is that a market you're growing in?
It's doing very well in Ireland. It would have reached a plateau because there's only a certain number of celiacs in the country. So it's a very good, profitable niche for us. Online, it's not so profitable yet, because certainly in the UK, what we're trying to sell them is a gluten-free Irish soda bread mix. So you have 2 niches, the gluten-free niche, and then you have the Irish people who are gluten-free in the UK. So it's a very, very small market. We may, but with the beauty of the likes of Amazon is you can do NPD and convert it to a live product very, very quickly. So we may produce a yeast bread which is gluten-free for that market in a mixed form.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And lessons learned from that that you'll take to the US, I think, is what your next plan is. It?
Yeah, a lot of the lessons are around managing the Amazon account. You cannot manage it without a dedicated resource, and initially the numbers don't add up. But what you're trying to do is generate a channel which will reflect the same size account that you have with your existing customers. So if my Dunn's account or Musgrave's account is equals X, well then you say, okay, what I want to do is generate the online channel to be of the same value of one of my key customers. And to do that, any key customer, you're going to have an account manager or someone to oversee it. And the same challenges you'd have with starting to sell into Dunn's or Musgrave's in terms of listing and checking the correct labeling and delivery to stores or warehouse apply to Amazon.
Interesting. Yeah. It's another channel that you just have to master, and you have to cultivate that relationship. So it's the old values almost as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Just the same things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the mystery is, it can be demystified so long as you follow through the same principles you adopt for your business generally.
Yeah, but with Amazon, if you think about it, or any online retailer, if you're walking through a supermarket, you don't have much time, and you're galloping through the aisles looking at products, and you're buying a lot of products on an automatic basis because you recognize the color, the brand. That's my product it's my cereal, that's my bread, that's my milk, bang, and it goes. That's why color is so important. But on Amazon, the consumers have much more time to examine your product without touching it, granted. But the product is up on the screen. You can do a 360 on the pack. You can read everything on the pack in terms of labeling, nutritions, the comments. So your customer has much more time to examine and criticize your product. So your presentation on the Amazon page is really critical. And there are keywords in your descriptors. There's a lot of work goes into that. We hope to be selling into the US for the March 2021 period. So we want to be selling in sometime mid-January. And we will have done 6 months solid work on that in getting ready for our first sale. We started work on our prep for Amazon US in June.
Excellent. It certainly just shows that you put in that investment both in the product when you're designing it initially, and the thought and the processes there around what you were trying to achieve, and then taking that right through to the moment of truth with the customer when they, as you say, walking down that virtual aisle. So interesting. Yeah, excellent. So anything, just to wrap up, Michael, anything you want to reflect on the last 6 months, and indeed how it impacts your future, or advice you give to other people?
God, I wouldn't be in the advice giving mode. I think it's, we got to be genuinely very humble about our businesses and about the people in them, because without the people, we just don't exist, and we've got to be hugely careful about them and their needs and concerns. And that does feed through to business survival. But if we don't look after our people, we don't have a business. And within our people and our stakeholders are our customers. It sounds too simple, but that's where it's at. So it's a renewed focus on our people, probably a renewed focus on our business, and keeping it simple and really driving through savings, because I think it's going to be quite tough for the next 2 or 3 years.
Sure. Now, very interesting that focus, and keep it simple and focus on the people.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly two fantastic takeaways. I think, because we can tend to get caught up in the greater world and the complexity of everything, but back to basics is critical. So, Michael, thank you very much for your time. I think I've found it very, very interesting. I've known you a long time, but you always bring me new insights and fresh thinking. So I don't mean that as a pun on the business.
No, yeah.
But you've always challenged yourself in terms of your thinking, and I think challenge your business, and keep everything on its toes, as it were. So thank you very much for that.
Jerry, you're welcome. Good to talk to you this morning. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you too. Thank you.